Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you that signs have to be down. They can't be in the way of people seeing. And there's to be no questions unless it's recognized. You're recognized. So, thank you. Do you want to put that on, or do you just...
Well, can you hear me? I guess we can just do it this way. This is good, so you can see my face. I'm glad you're here tonight. I don't know all you want me to talk about, but obviously I had another busy day in Madison, and I'm glad to be here. We saw some nice demonstrations on both ends of my journey, so it's kind of like nice bookends we had here tonight. I guess if you want an update as far as what's going on in Madison, as you're perhaps aware, Governor Walker introduced what we call budget adjustment bill. It is not unusual this time of year with the economy being so poor that our budget does not wind up in the surplus that we normally want. And 2 years ago, Governor Doyle also introduced a budget adjustment bill. That budget adjustment bill was introduced on Wednesday and passed on Thursday, which contained $1 billion in tax increases. Governor Walker, I think, respecting public opinion, introduced the bill on a Friday, maybe a little bit quick, but we had a 16-hour public hearing on the Joint Finance Committee that I was a part of. And at the end of that public hearing, we had an extensive amendment of the bill. We realized the bill wasn't perfect. And to a certain extent, that amendment was things dealing with some of the complaints that some of the people who testified at the hearing had, as well as some of the concerns the other Republican legislators had. The original intent was that this budget adjustment bill would be a Senate bill. Some bills that I vote on are Senate bills, some bills are Assembly bills. This was supposed to be a Senate bill. Unfortunately, what happened, and something I've never seen before in the 17 years I've been in the state legislature, 14 Democrats left to go to Illinois, and because a budget bill is a financial bill under our state constitution, you need at least 20 senators to be there to vote on it. So we weren't able to vote on it in this Senate. As the result, we've decided to change things around and make it an Assembly bill in the state Assembly, including 3 assemblymen from here in Sheboygan County. Representatives Ensley, Castell, and Lemieux plan on voting on that bill in the state Assembly tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get out of the state Assembly, and then we're going to see what happens in the state Senate. We are on the floor tomorrow dealing with other legislation that does not have a fiscal note. And hopefully, eventually the Democrats will return. You hear people saying, why can't you compromise? This is a compromise bill. As I said, there's an extensive amendment which has been added to the original bill. The bill deals with things other than public employee concerns, but there are public employee concerns in the bill, and I'll explain to you why that is. We are in a huge budget deficit. I see we have some school teachers here tonight. Normally you associate schools with your property tax, but about 45% of your income and sales tax also goes to schools. And if you're going to look at a budget of this size, if you have 45% of the budget dealing with schools, obviously you have to spend a little bit of time dealing with it. It would be impossible to balance this budget without a huge tax increase, without looking at that 45% that goes to schools, as well as other money that goes to cities and counties. If Governor Walker is going to reduce aid to schools and cities and counties, which he will do when he introduces his budget next week, he will have no choice but to find a way to have schools and cities and counties operate by spending less money. The bulk of school spending, as well as very much of county and city spending, goes to employee compensation. That's also where a lot of our state money goes. And as the result, Governor Walker has proposed that state employees, as well eventually county and city employees, pay for some of their pension and more of their health insurance. I, of course, am a state employee, and I would expect when we're all done with this that my take-home pay is going to drop something like 8 to 10%. We've yet to see. I think when Governor Walker looks at the county budget or the city budget or the school budget, and you got to remember, Governor Walker used to be the county executive for Milwaukee County, so he's very familiar with local budgets. Rather than lay a lot of people off, Governor Walker would rather have everybody take a little bit of cut and pay. I think many private sector businesses have had to deal with their sales dropping, and as their sales drop, the businesses have to make one of two determinations. Either we're going to lay people off, or everybody's going to have to make a little less money. And I think it's absolutely horrible when people are laid off. I've known a lot of my constituents who have laid off and don't have a job altogether. But Governor Walker has said, no, we're going to try to keep as many people as employed as possible. Everybody's going to have to make a little less money, and I stand behind Governor Walker in that. So that's what we're going to plan on having happening. You also may have heard things about collective bargaining. One of the problems that unions can cause when you're dealing with a city or school district or county is if you change the way people work, maybe ask them to do something different than they did before, you have to go through the union. And when I talk to school superintendents or city administrators or what have you, one of the frustrating things for them is if they want to do things in a different way that's maybe more efficient or maybe would save money, the union says, no, that's a union negotiating thing, you can't do it. And given the crisis that we're in, Governor Walker wants the mayors or the county executives or the school administrators to be able to deploy their personnel as they see fit. So you're going to hear some people say that it's not a fiscal issue, but rest assured that collective bargaining can be very much a fiscal issue. And as Governor Walker wants the county executives and school administrators and city administrators to be able to operate their units of government as efficiently as possible, he wants to give them whatever flexibility they want. Sometimes in the past, it's been very difficult to deal with unions. People say, well, why don't you just negotiate with unions? I'll give you an example. On health insurance, which I realize now unions are willing to give in on, there are some school districts that may spend $23,000 or $24,000 a year for a family health insurance plan, and other school districts, because they go to a different carrier or maybe they self-insure, are spending $15,000 or $16,000 for the same benefits. Now, normally you would say if you have one district spending $23,000 a year and the other district spending $15,000 a year for the same benefits, why doesn't the district spending $23,000 a year just go to $15,000 a year? And that's because right now it's subject to the sacred collective bargaining. And a lot of school districts have seen teachers say, we refuse to have the more or the less expensive plan even though it's the same benefits. And frequently those teachers, or at least the union in those areas, they say, we don't care if it's going to mean higher class sizes, we don't care if it means getting rid of some extracurriculars, we insist on the more expensive plan. And they have insisted on that maybe for a decade or more. So clearly, collective bargaining is not the way that you necessarily operate a school the most efficiently. And that's why I stand behind Governor Walker in considering collective bargaining a fiscal issue. And like I said, if we are going to have mayors or county administrators or school administrators deal with this cut in school aids or county aids or city aids, I think they need the ability to do this. There's one other thing in Governor's budget that is receiving some publicity but not as much, and that is in dealing with things like Badger Care or Medicaid. The second biggest part of our budget is Badger Care or Medicaid, which is health care, which the state provides for the poor or middle-class people who don't have other health care. In the last 4 years, despite the fact that we've been in a very difficult economy and we have less money coming in, the cost of Badger Care has gone up. And obviously, if you're trying to put together a budget and you're trying to cut costs in other places, it's not very good when the second biggest line of your budget is going up. One of the reasons Badger Care is so expensive in the state of Wisconsin, first of all, let me explain. Badger Care, in the year we are currently in, the federal government pays for 70%, and the state of Wisconsin pays for 30%. Next year, and we operate on a fiscal year in the state of Wisconsin, in the year beginning July 1st, we're going to go back to the old way in which the federal government picks up 60% and the state picks up 40%. So obviously, if you have the second biggest line of your budget, and right now the state is picking up 30%, it's going up to 40%, that by itself creates a problem. Now, a problem or inequity in Badger Care is that right now Badger Care, which is people who have government health insurance have, is usually more generous than most people who have insurance through their private company.